So if you look at our total measured, indicated, and inferred, we are up by almost 300%.
Amazing.
So that is incredible, especially considering that it covers only 5% of the property. And the property is quite large, over 1,200 square kilometers. So it's shaping up very nicely. And again, on the logistics side, we also have quite a few advantages because we're right on the coast, unlike many other potash deposits in the world.
Hello and welcome to the Assay TV. Today I'm here at 1-to-1 Mining Investment Dubai, and we're here with Farhad Abasov, Chairman and Director of Millennial Potash. So Farhad, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Good to see you, Amy. How are you?
Always great to be able to catch up in person, of course. And so, it's been a little while since we last did an interview, but maybe you can just give us a quick introduction to Millennial Potash.
Yeah, of course, Amy. Millennial Potash is developing, now it looks like a world-class potash project in Gabon in West Africa. We started with that project about 2 years ago. We did quite a bit of drilling. Now it has a very large resource. It's one of the thickest potash deposits in the world. And logistically, it's actually right on the coast, Atlantic coast, of course, of West Africa in Gabon. And we recently had a very strong support coming from the U.S. government. So we signed a strategic partnership agreement with USDFC.
And we'll definitely be getting into that a little bit later. And so the Banio project, which is your flagship, it's been described as a world-class potash project. And as you mentioned, it's based in Gabon. Can you outline some details about the project and maybe what kind of differentiates it from others?
Sure. I mean, we started with the first drill campaign last year. We drilled 2 holes where basically we had quite a bit of historical data, so we could we didn't know where to go and where to actually twin those holes, which we did. And we had quite a strong, MRE, the maiden resource that came out last year. That was 1.7 billion tons of indicated and inferred resource based on only 2 holes. And what was really outstanding about this deposit at the time was that it was very thick. It was about 70-meter thick potash deposit, or potash horizons, which is very rare. In many parts of the world, you get to 25 meters max, but generally speaking, not even that. But in our case, at the thinnest part of the deposit, we're already getting 70 meters thick potash. Now, this year, we're continuing with 2 more holes, and now we increased that thickness by 50%. So we got to 100 meters in one of the holes. The other one was 112 meters. And when the updated MRE came out, I think it was last week, right before 1-to-1 in London, now we increased the entire resource dramatically. So M&I went up by 275%, inferred went up by over 200%. We did not have measured resource last year. This year we have over 650 million. So if you look at our total measured, indicated, and inferred, we are up by almost 300%.
Amazing.
So that is incredible, especially considering that it covers only 5% of the property. And the property is quite large, over 1,200 square kilometers. So it's shaping up very nicely. And again, on the logistics side, we also have quite a few advantages because we're right on the coast, unlike many other potash deposits in the world.
Okay, interesting. And so you have grown your maiden resource, which started at about 1.7 billion and has increased up to 6 billion tons of potash-bearing material. So can you talk about what this means for the project's long-term potential?
So we did a preliminary economic assessment last year based on 800,000 ton a year operation. But even with 800,000 tons, we had 56 years of mine life. So with this massive increase in resource, obviously, we go with only 800,000 tons, we're going to have, centuries of mine life. So that, well, obviously, that's not what we're going to be targeting. So we will start a feasibility study in the next few weeks, and we will look at different scenarios. Obviously, 800,000 tons is still going to be our base case, but we're going to look at much larger production rates as well, because now the resource is so big that it can actually enable us to do that. So we'll see how that's going to change the economics of the project, but it can only get better because, again, of the large resource, but also because, as I mentioned earlier, the potash deposit, the thickness is getting better and better. Now we're at 100 meters, and we are going to do solution mining. And solution mining will actually keep our entire cost structure low, but even with thicker potash, that means that your operating cost sustaining capex will be lower as well.
Okay, excellent. And so, potash the demand for potash is expected to grow quite significantly as food production needs to rise. How do you see Millennial Potash positioning itself within this kind of growing market?
So I mean, there are a couple of interesting things about potash market in general. One, you're absolutely right. The demand has been growing steadily over the last several decades now. To give you a simple example, when we started with our first potash project many years ago, almost 18 years ago, it was called Potash 1 at the time. It was a project in Saskatchewan. At that time, China was using only 5 million tons of potash. Today, China is the largest consumer of potash, 15 million tons. Incredible growth over the last 15 years or so. Now, that pattern is going to probably repeat itself in other parts of the world, in Africa and in Latin America. Right now, we're witnessing that in Southeast Asia, for example. So the demand is definitely there. It's going to increase for a number of reasons that you mentioned. Now, what is interesting about potash supply side is that it's highly geographically concentrated. So if you look at major potash suppliers, it's basically Canada, Russia, and Belarus. That's about almost 70% of world supply of potash. Another 10% comes from another, I would say, geopolitical hotspot with Middle East. So that is an issue with potash right now. It's not really shortage of potash, it's actually where potash comes from. So our location, in addition to obviously cost structure and so forth, all other advantages, is absolutely favorable because we're in geopolitically neutral jurisdiction, which is Gabon. At the same time, we're actually very well located on the Atlantic coast, meaning that we can feed obviously our potash to African market, which is growing, but also we'll be the nearest supplier to Brazil, which is the largest single potash importer in the world, about 13 million tons a year. And with USDFC involvement, we will probably be able to place some of our product in the eastern seaboard of the US as well, which is also a very large potash importer. Most of it comes from Canada.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, as you mentioned, the USDFC committed $3 million towards the feasibility study for the Banio project. Can you talk about how this support helps to de-risk the project? How does it kind of help you with future financing? And really, how does it work with kind of this new designation as a critical mineral?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few aspects there. One, USDFC's agreement with us is very important. I think it was a major de-risking event from both political and financial perspective, because it's not just $3 million, which is, by the way, non-dilutive, meaning it's not equity, it's no loan, it's really grant money for us to go ahead and use that capital for feasibility studies specifically. But also they wanted the right of first refusal to lead our project financing. So we expect that USDFC will be actively involved in helping us, fund basically the construction of this project. And we've seen incredible political support coming from the U.S. government across the board, not only directly from USDFC, but also from the State Department, from the U.S. Embassy in Gabon, which is very rare. I mean, we're a Canadian company. We've never seen that type of support from any government. And today the U.S. government is providing this support, for which we're very grateful. But I think the implications of this, go beyond just our project. I mean, that is commitment to the potash sector. That is commitment to this part of Africa. That's very important. And also, as you mentioned, potash is now designated as critical mineral by the U.S. Now, Canada put potash on their critical minerals list a few years back, but now the U.S. has the designated potash as well. People are coming to realize now that, look, before we do anything else, before we think about critical minerals such as rare earths or lithium and copper and so forth, we have to eat. And potash, as well as some other fertilizers, are directly linked to food security. So major countries, now in this case Canada, US, and I think some other countries are coming to that realization and conclusion. And that I think is very important because a lot of the large consumers of potash, and again, these are large agricultural countries, really don't want to be dependent on only a handful of countries. So we think that we'll be playing a key role in diversification of potash supply going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's a critical time for kind of ensuring the security of supply for these key critical minerals. All right, and so what can we be on the lookout for from Millennial Potash in the coming year?
So 2025 was a great year for us. We had a huge increase, obviously, in our resource estimate. We had this major agreement with USDFC. Now, going forward in the next few weeks, we're going to start our Banio feasibility study, along with environmental and social assessment studies. So those two programs will go concurrently with each other until probably third quarter of next year. At the same time, we'll drill some more. So we're moving more to the south. We see that the strike line continues a couple of kilometers south of what we drilled this year. So just to show uniformity and continuity of our deposit. In addition to that, we're going to be working very closely with some potential off-takers, of course, with USDFC on financing, and with some strategics who are quite interested in the project. So, again, this could take a form of strategic investment or offtake or a combination thereof. So a lot of things in the works. So we think that in the next few weeks and months, we're going to have a very nice news flow as well with the further development of the project.
Okay, well, coming off of an exciting 2025, we hope it's a good 2026 as well. So
thank you very much, Amy.
I want to thank you for joining us here today at the Assay.
Thanks a lot, Amy. Good to be here.